guys, good morning. As you may notice, I'm not in my regular stitchy spot because today is Sunday and it's a beautiful day outside, second day of spring, lots of sunshine. So I decided to shoot it in my bedroom. And today what I really want to talk to you about is organizing your cross-stitch projects. If you're anything like me, I start way more projects than I finish, and I abandon a few along the way as well. And I kind of like to be organized. So last year, somewhere around November, I got a little bit overwhelmed with all the different projects I had on the go. So I just started writing them out on sticky notes, and I put them down in a column on the side of my bookcase, and one column for whips, one column for kits, like projects that I intend to start soon, and then a really small non-existent column for any finishes. So it was really nice to be able to see visually how many projects I had on the go, and I tried to record when I started the project, or if I can remember it, I'll try to estimate it as best as possible, like for instance at least summer of 2013 or something like that. But I always kind of wanted to have something more organized, something that allows me to enter more data into it. Didn't really have time to think about it very much. And then this semester, I took a course in metadata schemas and an application, I think it's called. So, and as part of that coursework, they asked us to do an assignment on a repository of our choice and create a metadata schema for it. So let me just kind of explain what metadata is for those who don't know, or you kind of heard about it but you don't really fully understand, which is basically what I was before I took the course. It's like this metadata, everyone talks about it, but like what is it really? So very simply put, metadata is data that describes other data. So for instance, if you browse your public library, or when you use your public library search system to look for a book, you can search by title or author or by subject, and all that information is captured about the book itself, and that is metadata. And a schema is basically a collection of properties, I guess, about a particular object. So for instance, the schema for a book would include things like the title, the publisher. It would also include things like number of pages if it was a physical hard copy, which is not the same as like the metadata schema for a DVD, because that wouldn't have the number of pages. It might have the region code where you can play the DVD. So the intention of the assignment was to select a repository, so a collection of things, and create a schema for it. And I thought that would be a great opportunity to do it for my cross-stitch projects. And all that really means is look at your cross-stitch projects, the collection of the objects, and try to figure out what type of properties would apply to it, and whether there's any constraints on it, or whether any rules that have to be applied. So I did that for my project, and I think I'm pretty happy with it. I have So for instance, for a project, I would have an ID, I would have a title, I would have a start date, and then I also created a status for my project. So it could be a kit, which means I gathered all the materials, and but it's not started yet. So at some point I will start it, hopefully. It could be a work in progress, which means that I've already started it, I've made the stitches, and I'm still working on it. It could be completed, which means all the stitching is done according to the chart, and that includes all the beading and the half stitching, the back stitching, French knots, whatever. If whatever the chart says, that piece is now completed. And then the next step up is finished, And that means that the object, the cross stitch object, has now been finished according to whatever final state you want it to be in. So whether that is being framed, or it's made into a pin cushion, or made into you framed in a hoop, or made into like a little belt pull or something, whatever you want, or an ornament. So that's the distinction between completed and finished. I thought a long time about that, actually, because I noticed that when people refer to their cross stitch, they don't really know when to say it's finish or finish. Finish implying that you've completed everything and not just the stitching. I've seen people in forums use a small letter F for finishing the stitching, and a capital letter F for finishing the framing, or whatever, the biscorno, or whatever it is that you're making. So I came up with the idea of that, your stitching is completed. That's the first, that's the stage. And then the next stage of it is that the object is finished. So everything is finalized and it's done. You can't do anything else with it unless you like disassemble it and reframe it or something. So that's the status. And then I also added a status of abandoned, because I abandon projects all the time, unfortunately. And then let's see what else. So the way I looked at it is that a project is one type of resource in my collection. So a project has other resources that it uses in order to exist. So it uses a chart, it uses floss, it uses fabric, and other types of embellishment. So all of these are separate resources. So for instance, in a chart, and then for each type of resource, you have different properties that are associated with it. So in a chart, I would definitely have, the chart title, the designer who created a chart. I even have the artwork title and the artwork designer if the chart was based on an existing artwork. Like for instance, a lot of the and my Gecko Rouge octopus kit, it's the chart is created by Gecko Rouge because they're the ones who converted it into a cross stitch chart, but the artwork is from Clara Niles. I'm not really sure how to pronounce her last name, but so she would be entered in it. There's a series title in case the chart is part of a bigger series, and then there's a bunch of things like the dimension of the design. Let's see whether where your chart is stored and what format it is, whether it's a PDF or like a magazine or a leaflet, and then you can either put in like in my it's a lot of my charts on my Google Docs in a cross stitch folder, or they're in the magazine holder, in the living room or in the bookcase, whatever you want. So that's the chart object. And then you have the fabric, which also has like kind of similar but also different properties. So for instance, the fabric would have things like what's the brand or the manufacturer, what's the color name, what's the count, what type of fabric is it. So you can say Aida or linen, or you can say Joblin or Murano or Jaslyn, whatever type of fabric you want to specify. You can also specify whether the fabric is washable or not, which I think is important because sometimes once I start a project and it's like a year down the road, I can't really remember whether this fabric is washable or not. And then it has the dimensions of in inches, as well as any storage location where you have it. And the next one is floss, so it's kind of similar. You have the brand, the name, the color of the floss, whether it's washable or not. You can even record information about the skein, like how many meters or yards are in a skein, and how many plies if you're interested in that. And then the embellishment. So there's different types of embellishments. There are, according to me, from what I know anyway. So there's buttons, there's beads, there's charms, there are crystals, and I think that's kind of what I had. So you choose one of those, and then you can then select. You can write down more information, whether it's a delica beads or bugle. The diameter is X millimeter. The color number or the color is blah blah blah. Um, and yeah, and all of these resources, whether it's a project or a chart or a floss or fabric, there's like little descriptors that you can add. So for instance, one of them is acquisition. So I write down where I bought it or whether it was purchased for a special occasion. Um, I'll write down for the project, I'll have an occasion. So basically, am I making this for someone, like for, birth announcement or anniversary gift or something like that? And then, yeah, I have a modification one in case I make modifications. Oh, and then there's one more resource. So you have all these materials that go into your project, and then at the end, when you're done or while you're working on it, you get an object. So that's the cross stitch object. And that one has a lot of properties that it inherits from the project itself, but it also has some unique ones because the object itself can be washable or not, depending on what materials you used. The object can also be a different type. So nowhere in the project itself that does it mention what type of project you're making. So by the object, once I am done with it, I can either choose to frame it, or I can choose to make it into a pillow, or I can choose to make it into a belt pull or whatever. Like there's different ways where you can finish an object. So that's how I kind of try to capture all the information that really goes into a project. So I handed in my assignment about 2 or 3 weeks ago now, so it's all done, and I'm pretty happy with it. And in the last few weeks, I've been thinking about how to put all those properties that I come up with, and I organize them, in my assignment as well. So I actually have a schema, how to take that and execute it. Really, I mean. I had to put some examples in my assignment, and all I did was really like create a word table, like property, value, blah 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 blah. But I don't think that's a very good way of collecting or entering my information, because in word tables, they're not linked. You can't easily sort the data, so you can't run any query. You can't run any search or queries against it. So it's not a very good way. So I played around with things like spreadsheets, mostly different types and different ways of formatting and structuring the data. I tried using a Google form, where you basically have like a long form and you just start typing everything field after field. The problem with that is they're not all fields, not all properties or fields, as I'll call them, are used or applicable to all projects. So, and sometimes you wanna just add multiples of a field. So for instance, the project could have, well, definitely has multiple colors of floss that are being used. So, and not just colors, but sometimes you have projects that have multiple types of floss that are being used. So I might want to capture that my chatelaine uses Gloriana silks, and that it uses Dinky Dyke silks as well, and silken colors and all these different silks. I want to be able to capture that in my repository. So in the form, I can't really do that because I haven't found a free form online that allows people to add their own fields or repeat certain fields. So that wasn't really good. And then finally, I kind of settled on a spreadsheet where I have different tabs for the different types. So I have a tab for a project, chart, fabric, floss, embellishments, and object. So that's 6 tabs. And basically all the different properties that I was describing are in a row at the top, And then basically all you need to do is go to the projects tab, give it an ID. So I have an idea for what ID to give. So for instance, my convention is uh, year and then dash 01. So if it started in 2015, my first project would be called 2015-01, 02, 03, and it goes all the way up like that. Hopefully I will not hit more than 99 in a year. That would be I think that would be too much even for me. So, and then it has a title, it has the status, the start date, and then at the end of the row, the last column is it has columns for chart, floss, fabric, and embellishments. So basically what I do there is, and then I link it to the chart that I entered in the other tab. So in the chart tab, I'll have one for chart 01, and it would be the Holland Springtime Mandala, and I have all the information recorded about it. So it kind of works, although I find there's a lot of like cross-referencing that I have to manually enter, because at the end of the chart it will also say, you know, this is used in project blah blah blah. So then I have to enter the project ID. And the way I'm doing this is because um, initially I was thinking of doing one big sheet and have a really long row where I have like the project info and then the chart info and then the fabric info and all that, and it just becomes really really long, and I didn't really like that, and also I actually have bigger plans for this. I really would like to create a proper database where these different types of resources all have their own tables, and then there's proper relationships between them, so that then the next step would be to take that and translate it into, you know, some sort of web interface. And I'll admit I'm heavily influenced by Ravelry. So for those who don't know, Ravelry is a website for mostly knitters and crocheters, where they created this amazing organizational tool. So in Ravelry, you could go out and buy some yarn, and then you log in onto your account and you say, I want to stash some yarn. So you will enter the brand name and how many skeins you have. And the Ravelry has such an amazing database that you can just pull up the information from their database. So if I enter, you know, I bought some Peyton's wool, and it will automatically know that Peyton's wool comes in 100 gram skeins of 210 meters each or something like that, whatever the amount is. 210 yards maybe, I can't remember. Anyway, so then, when it says when I enter I bought 6 skeins, it will know automatically that I have 6 times the amount of how much yardage it is. So I was really hoping to get, you know, something like that for cross stitch. I mean, I think it would be really really cool if we had some sort of resource where you could enter your stash, like I bought a chart and the chart is by this company, and you know, these are the dimensions of the chart itself, and it requires these and these flosses to be used, and then when you create a project, all you have to do is say, I want to use, you search for a chart name, and you can link it directly to your project without having to re-enter the information over and over again. So then the next person, you know, they will also link to the same chart, and they don't have to enter all the information about the artist or the stitch count or any, you know, anything of that, because it's already been entered once into the database. And then also you can attach pictures to your project, so you can add a floss, a new hand dye floss maybe, and you can add a color name. You can take a picture of your floss and attach it to it so other people can see it as well. So yeah, I do have a big dream that might be a possibility someday. Although I have to be honest, I don't have the technical skills to make that happen. Um, I have the schema. Um, I can create a database out of it, you know, not a very sophisticated one, but, you know, good enough, I think. But I don't know how to translate that into a website, because I don't have, you know, web development skills. So we'll see. Well, I think we'll take it in steps. But basically, what I want to do today is share my spreadsheet with you. And if you'd like to take a look at it, I already created an example with some of my projects and charts in it. Um, and I would love it if you could have a look at it and try to fill the template out with your projects and with your charts, and let me know if that makes sense to you. Because when you create things like this, it's very much dependent on your context. So I put in properties and values in there that kind of make sense to me and the type of projects I like to stitch, which might be totally different from what you would like to capture about your projects. So if you could, if you're interested, I'll put the link in my description below, and you can have a look at it. And if you like, you can copy the spreadsheet over to your Google Drive and fill it out. And if you have any comments or any feedback about it, please let me know. I would really appreciate that, because I would like to improve on my schema and make it as inclusive and as standardized as possible. So for instance, when I talked about the whole completed versus finished status thing, if that doesn't make sense to you and you have a better suggestion and about how to name them or how to handle it, and other people agree, then yeah, I think that should be the way to go, because then that's what everyone thinks it is and not what just I think it is. So if you if you have a moment, please have a look at it. You can either comment on the video and give me your feedback, or you can either send me a message through YouTube. I'll try to respond as soon as I can. But I think it would be really neat, and I'm not making any promises that it's gonna actually make it into a website, because as I said, I can't build it. But if you have those kind of skills, or even if you have the kind of skills to make sophisticated spreadsheets, and you have an idea on how you can improve my crappy spreadsheet, please comment below. Let me know. I would love to talk to other people about this, because I think it would be really neat to have a common vocabulary for cross stitchers, so that we can all agree what to call the same thing, or maybe even for designers that I don't know. I wonder sometimes, for instance, how all those cross-stitch websites, how they load information on their website, whether someone's manually typing it in or whether it's imported from a spreadsheet that's structured a certain way. Like, if everyone has a common fields where they say chart title is named this way, and alternative title is named that way, series title is named that way, and blah blah blah. If they all agree on those things, then you can have interoperability, and people can just exchange information about their charts. And in this case, I'm thinking about between designers and publishing houses and resellers, and stores and all that. They can exchange that data really quickly and easily without having to manually type it in by someone, which is, I think, kind of crazy in this day and age. So I kind of wonder about these things. Kind of geeky, I know. Anyway, so if you're interested, I will link it below, and please let me know what you think. I would love to hear from you. And today I will also make another video to talk about my chatelaine, more like the journey of someone who starts out on a chatelaine, and all the things that I thought about, and the entire process I went through, and the very few things that I learned so far. But I'm happy to share them with you if you're interested. And especially, I wanted to make the video for people who've never done a chatelaine before, because yeah, it is intimidating. There's a lot of different things, and chatelaines, first of all, are not cheap. they are they're actually super expensive to stitch, to get all the materials. Plus they have all these complicated specialty stitches that you've never done before. There's beading. The chart is massive and it looks, quite intimidating. The process of buying charts and all that stuff is also not as straightforward as just going to 1 2 3 stitch and buying it. So yeah, I want to make a video. I thought about it. And hopefully for people who've thought about stitching on chatelaine or just curious about what it's like to stitch a larger project like that, it might be interesting for you, and I hope you can learn something from it. So thank you so much for watching. I will see you soon with another video. Bye!